This is section 1.1, modeling and equation solving, pre-calculus. This is also found on page 64 in your book. This lesson is primarily about mathematical models, which, as you can see, a mathematical structure used to predict its behavior. There will be three different types of models that will be discussed in this lesson. The first being a numerical model, which is a table or chart used to analyze data. We will go through an example of this later. The second type of model that we're going to talk about is an algebraic model, which is the use of formulas to relate variable quantities, which basically means that we are going to solve an equation algebraically, which we have done in previous classes and also earlier this year. Example that I have here is a solving of an algebraic problem. We're going to do it algebraically. So as you can see, the equation is 6x to the third minus 11x squared minus 10x equals 0. Now the first thing that we have to do is, well, we can't directly solve for x because there's x cubed and x squared. Our first step algebraically is going to be to factor out an x. So when I do that, I factor out the x, and what I'm left with is 6x squared minus 11x minus 10 equals 0. Inside the parentheses is a quadratic, which again we can factor out to get 2x minus 5 times 3x plus 2. Again, looking at the work that I have done, I picked 2 and 3 to be factors of 6, is where I started. The rule being that if it is a negative 10, that means it's going to be a minus and a plus. So then I looked at the factors of 10, which are 5 and 2, and when I plugged those in, that was the first one that worked. Now that I have the equation totally factored out, I can set each one of these, the first one, x, 2x minus 5, and 3x plus 2 equal to 0 and solve, which is what I have done next. The first one being x equals 0, which is the easy one. 2x minus 5 equals 0. If I solve for that, x equals 2.5. And the last one, when I solve for x, it's a negative 2/3, which means that our three answers that we will get are negative 2/3, 0, and 2.5. Graphically, we can also solve this. As of right now, I don't have a graphing calculator on my laptop, so I can't do this, but we can show that equation has three solutions as well. Again, this being a practice lesson, we'll go through that in class. Third and final, looking at charts here, a numeric model to a graphical model. So what we're trying to do here is figure out an equation for this, and then we'll be able to solve that. I'm going to try to put this in slope-intercept form. First step being finding the slope. Now how I'm going to do that is I am going to find the change in y over the change in x. So if I can go up here and select my pen, right there, I can see that going from 0 to 3, 3 to 6, I am going up by 3. And the x, I am going up by 2. gives me a slope of 3 over 2. The last thing I have to do is figure out what my y-intercept is. The y-intercept is where the x equals 0, so if I work backwards here, I will see that this is 0 if I would work backwards, and this would be negative 3. So when x equals 0, the y-intercept is negative 3, which is what I found there. So if I put that into the equation, I can find my solution there. Again, with a graphing calculator, we were going to look at an equation x plus 3 divided by x and show you what happens at x equals 0, and also what happens at the end of the graph, being what is the end behavior. Again, we will look at that in class together. Last thing we have here is another example of a algebraic equation that we are going to solve. Again, the first step here that I did is I want to combine my x squareds. So I added 2x squared to get 3x squared, and I added 5 to get 13. This is a little different than the last problem we did for the fact that I don't have to factor out anything. Being this, the next step is dividing by 3, which is how we get 13 over 3. And undoing x squared, we take the square root. Remembering that when we take a square root, we do create two answers, a positive and a negative. And these being irrational numbers, we can leave it in radical form and leave the answer to be plus or minus the square root of 13 over 3. The assignment that you guys will be doing is here, and again, we will be working on this in class.